Hi there, everyone. Welcome to day 204, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Nyback. We're here talking about black issues in America, going through an extended time, a story time at Uncle Tom's Cabin. We'll get to that in a moment, but it's still very relevant to what's going on, what we address. It's interesting. It seems like the further I go in this project, the more it comes to completion, the more racial tension seems to be agitated in America from our um, POTUS and people going back and forth and concerned about rights and etiquette and precedents and things like that. And we've got some serious issues going on. So the project is very relevant. Doing this year-long project, navigating how to express, how to articulate all of these complicated, or nearly esoteric issues. We're talking about what the underpinning of America, portions of it, not all of it, not exhaustively to any degree, but we're definitely talking about aspects of the foundation of the United States of America. The aspect of that foundation is, success of the nation rests squarely, I would say, almost exclusively on free black labor through hundreds of years of slavery. And that institution just has left its mark. I think about sometimes when I think about my past life and my past life in this life, not anything crazy, transcendental or anything. I'm talking about my past on this earth. I wince sometimes at the way I've treated little animals, relationships. And I'm like, man, wow, such a bastard. Uh, so much of the time, just unacceptable behavior. And it smites my mind, my spirit. And I think, America goes through that. We can't seem to get past this and move on because America just will not wince at its past, right? Its success and all that, won't reciprocate, reparate, things like that, and it's really holding up, and it's creating some pretty extreme tensions and pressures in America's social and economic structure. Um, we're going to come. We're going to if the future has America coming way out ahead, way out on top, a true leader in the free world, absent of hypocrisy, then there needs to be some radical and drastic change and sudden. And I wonder if we're ready for that. What's the nature, the condition of the black mind, and as these events unfold, are we passive? Are we actively engaged? Or are we ahead of the game, ahead of the curve? And, do we know what the next step is? What we have to guard, protect in the face of changes coming, and they may come soon. But I think we're going to see some major stuff go on. Robert Mueller's about to testify. We got 2020 election coming up on us rapidly. It's going to be interesting next 2, 3 years in America. The black mind must be awake, attentive, sober to navigate these changes. Conversely, the white mind. What will the white mind do? What will it? How will it navigate? Because the white mind expects privilege, favor, control, power, and you find the white mind stumped and challenged and can become quite disagreeable if the status quo is challenged or changed. Doesn't like that. It's in my workplace. The working relationship has almost had to have a reset, a restart in face of uh, me taking a stand, me having a will in that space, and it's still tentative. You know, I'm okay where I'm at. My pay hasn't changed, and all this other stuff. And um, I've got my irons in a lot of other fires. So this is a battle. This is their fight, right? Not necessarily mine. I made my stand. If things come around again, then they're going to hear my piece, and they're not going to like that much either. But we're just taking it right here, right now. I'm going back to school and all that, and life is going to get too busy to be engaged with them on any level anyway, like that. The white mind. Financial literacy, very important. It goes hand in hand with the expected changes in the next 2, 3 years. Um, I'm watching the chessboard, the political chessboard, and pieces maneuvering. I believe this president is he's slowly being cornered, almost like if you study the Civil War, when General Grant got in the picture, uh, he he was just this constant. He put this constant pressure on General Lee. Just kept little steps, very little retreating, just constantly in General Lee's face, and it was just attrition. Grant just was, I guess that he was a master at that, and the North won the war, the Union. The president is, I feel he's being challenged that way by the Democratic Party. In light of that, what do we do financially? I think at work, I'm like, I want to drive a truck. I'm guessing these guys have their space and their stuff. I made a lot of poor decisions. I'm redeeming myself slowly. They apparently made right decisions on their way up. These guys are, like 20 years younger than me, just doing so well. And I can complain. That's another piece. We'll talk about that. About how it's so convenient for some of these pitfalls and traps in America that people fall into, and how it is so profitable and favorable for other portions of society. That's another piece. But sometimes I'm concerned. I'm disappointed in them because I feel like it's that they think I really want to be there, making enough money to get through the week and barely have my ends meet. You know, I have no dependents, but I dare not think about having any dependents. Maybe a small animal at best, right? But I can't have a family on nothing an hour, working myself to the bone, extreme. I got tendonitis, both elbows developing, arthritis and stuff, and all breaking down my body. Right? Look, I shouldn't be working like this, having this, But we're turned. We stopped digging the hole. At least we're starting to build up. Maybe the hole is the foundation. Let's redeem the hole as something good. We'll call it the foundation, financial foundation. You know, but don't for black people, don't be so. Don't give up hope. Like I said, the hole can be a foundation. Um, don't be like me in my younger years. Oh, life ain't going anywhere. I just got a couple $100. Let's just have a party and vacation and drink and drug myself back into oblivion, back to zero, and start all over again. So we don't want to do that. We want to be more responsible. Yeah, our finances are tied up. Um, we're compelled, coerced to spend our money in various ways, but we don't have to give up. We can still put a little something aside and continue to have hope. That's all I can say. Listen, I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I've read 3 of his works. He's got plenty of material on YouTube. I'll tell you where you can find more of his work. But he articulates these arguments that we've been talking about for almost a year now much better than I can. First book I read was a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America. Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Also, we'll go heavily into the technical and blood and guts of slavery, history, politics, and stuff. Um, After I get back from vacation, we'll get serious again. Although Uncle Tom's Cabin is a serious endeavor as well. A lot of good conversational and talking points. Behind me, you see the hashtag us two symbol, black women coming together, supporting one another there. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook experience. If you can't find your flavor anywhere on the web, do what I did. Start your own little community. I got a handful of private email subscribers, and I consistently communicate with them as the project continues. All right. And finally, we are in Uncle Tom's Cabin extended series and getting a lot of interesting talking points and information out of it. I love story time. I never read that book, and I'm not surprised it's no longer has its place in American literature, but it's a classic. I'd like to see a revival of it. Maybe I can do something if I could ever get a good, bigger fan base. Chapter 21. This is a one-parter, very short chapter. Harriet Beecher Stowe's she's keeping the story going, and she wants us to keep in mind certain parts. Eliza, Harry, and George up north are fleeing capture, Uncle Tom down in New Orleans and in a new space and all that, keeping track. So right now we go back to Kentucky. What's been going on? Because remember when Tom left, everybody encouraged. Mr. Shelby was like, "Yes, Tom, of course we're going to do everything to get you back. We're going to find out." That's a lie. He doesn't care. He just wants his gambling debts paid, and he's glad. And his mind, like the all slave owners, is those black folks will get along eventually in time. But Chloe, Mrs. Shelby, and we find young George. There's a young George. Young George is Mr. Shelby's son, not George up north. That's he's Eliza's husband. There's two different Georges here. So young George even he grew close to Uncle Tom when they were together. So he's trying. He wants to get it going. This redemption as well. So the chapter 21 starts out. They get news from Tom and makes Chloe happy. The Shelby plantation is grateful. Tom has made an impact on this plantation and these people, and we shouldn't underestimate what he is his impact there, his importance in their lives, and all this stuff. Very important. We find Mr. Shelby. He's relaxing. We're going to find out he's still racking up gambling debts, but he's put Tom behind him. Um, Mrs. Shelby's like, look, we said we would do something, and what about their marriage? His marriage to Chloe, and she has a lot. She's bringing a lot of these values to the table, much like Miss Ophelia's arguments to her cousin St. Clare. The white women who actually turned out, I believe, historically served as agents, to help out, facilitate the abolition argument. They were supporters of freeing the slaves. But Mr. Shelby's like, no, he'll be all right. He'll marry again. You know, he doesn't seem to care much about Chloe's plight, being alone, raising three children. But he's like, Tom will marry again. He'll be all right. He'll get along. And Mrs. Shelby's like, come on, dude. Get it together. White women didn't have as much power as they do now. We're seeing a great revival and surge of female power. Good thing, not a bad thing at all. But not so in the mid 1800s. The wife did not work. Um, the wife was, a showpiece in the home. So she can complain and stuff, but she doesn't have a lot to say. She says, look, I've been one to promote biblical Christian values to the slaves, and now we're just undoing all that. She says, look, let's sell off a bunch of horses. Let's sell off a farm. And that should give us an idea of the incredible amount of debt that Mr. Shelby's racking up through his gambling debts. He must be a poor gambler. But, it's a gambling addiction. So it's not going to be profitable. It's the addict of anything. For me, drugs and alcohol. Mr. Shelby, it's gambling. Profitability doesn't come into the picture. It's the hunt. It's the activity of the addiction that is its own satisfaction, whether we come out ahead or not, doing the process is its reward. Um, and she is disappointed. She says, "Look, we've told them about Christ, valuing family, and that's what Tom and Aunt Chloe experienced and went through while they were there. But you see, when it comes to, we see who gets thrown under the bus when we look at these values and things like that. This is a big argument too, as far as you know, um, being conditioned to receive symbols and tokens. But when it comes down to it, the power structure is going to look out for itself. It's going to say all kinds of stuff. Here we find Mr. Shelby, just like St. Clare, dehumanizing. As good as St. Clare is to his slaves, there's a thinginess about black people. We got to dehumanize them. They're unable. Mr. Shelby wishes his wife had not puffed them up with this talk about family values and being together till death do you part and all this stuff. Because black folks are incapable of adhering to such a challenging doctrine. You know, he wishes she had not given them such biblical education because she's getting their hopes up on something that their black skin is not able to receive. We know that's not true. Black people love their families, have the same values, all this stuff. We are challenged first economically. That there's this constant economic pressure. It drives our caregivers out into the world for extended periods of time, away from family. So the couples cannot nurture the children in the home. It's not a done deal. Plenty of people come out ahead, do well, get educated, have morals and values and stuff like that, but it's just more challenging if you got to chase the mighty dollar from day to day, week to week, and checks not uh, meeting the way you want them to. So that's a big problem in the black family, in which you see a lot of dysfunction. So, um, um, excuse me, sorry. So that's a big issue. Yeah, in the reason that Mr. Shelby and St. Clair can sit back in their ease while everybody's working for them and say that uh, the black family can't handle that. It's because they're working their ass off. That's why. Um, he's calloused. He's as calloused as Topsy's welts, Prue's welts on their back. Not much said about Tom being the victim of punishment. We'll see how the story unfolds. Um, that black family has no value under under slave masters. They're torn apart uh, just as easy as we flip a light switch when we come into a dark room. And Mrs. Shelby is trying to process her disappointment in her husband. In the midst of this, Aunt Chloe's outside, and she actually overhears the conversation. She wants to be close. News of Tom has arrived, so that's going to make some agitation on the plantation, and so she wants to be around the source of power and strength in that space, and so she overhears it, and she feigns concern about which chicken to kill for the dinner and stuff, but that's just smokescreen to get her to talk to Mrs. Shelby. In the midst of that conversation, Chloe proposes that she gets hired out to a baker um, in a town some miles away, where she can make $4 a week and um, collect that money to save up for Tom. And that's a good green light on all of that. Some little bit of housekeeping on Chloe. She's already been training a house girl to do her work in the kitchen. The two boys, Tom's two boys, are old enough to start getting out doing some work around the plantation. And Aunt Chloe has instructed Sally, her trainee, on how to raise the baby, the baby that was present when Tom left. So she's put all that right. She's not some dumb slave that can't abstract and critically think. She understands the implications of going away and stuff like that. Okay. So she's got a green light on that. Let's do some math here. The figures I've seen, I guess, in Dr. Anderson's work, maybe on the internet, the peak of the slave institution, slaves would go could go upwards of $1,800. A good fit bull or a breeder. Sorry to put it in such casual terms, but that's how they were viewed. These black human beings, up to $1,800. Uh, you know, so think with this math, $4 a week um, is so it's going to be, and it's going to be. They say it's well. Mrs. Shelby says, look, it's going to take you 4 to 5 years to redeem Tom. So Tom is worth is between 800 and change to $1,000 and change. Putting this little $4 a week together to get him back. 4 to 5 years. Now it's not great. It's not news that black people did by themselves. If they could get a good side hustle going, work extra and stuff. And it's the same today. If you want to go to the next level in something, you want to do your regular work, your bread and butter, and then you got to do some extra, take it to get to the next level. And so this time, Chloe's got to go away, and all that is very important. And it's challenging for time. She's moving further away from her family. She's giving up more family so she can get Tom back. All this flies against St. Clare and Mr. Shelby's idea of black family values. Here's a woman ready to sacrifice. She's the challenge set squarely before her. She's making an informed choice. She knows what she's getting into and getting this back. She doesn't want any help from Mrs. Shelby. She's just $4, $4, $4. When I was a kid, I saved up for a little electronic game in the same way. My family was in a space where they kept track of allowances. Very rare, but it was $1. I was just crazy about this thing. I would see stuff and just lose my mind. And I did the calculation, $1 a week for this $13, $14 game. So $1, $1. Had to watch my brothers and sisters eat ice cream. I'm like, no, I'm getting this game, $1, and I got it too. I'm like that. Everybody is. You see something that just blows your mind. You're like, I'm going to sell the farm, the ranch. I'm going to save. I'm going to make this happen. As hard as it is, and as much fun as I see people using their resources, I know it's the right thing to say. Chloe's in that mind. Um, they get all this together, and so we leave Kentucky we're just checking in, see what's going on. They've received Tom's letter, and we get an update of what's going on up north compared to Louisiana, and so we can kind of leave it on autopilot for the next 4 or 5 years on the things going on the Shelby Ranch. They are committed to seeing Tom being reunited with Uncle Tom. I'm Tom Lynn's Nyback. I'm out of time here. It's 365 days towards racial change, day 204. Out of the way. Thanks for sticking around. Let's see what goes on as we continue the story through this important piece of literature, Uncle Tom's Cabin. See you tomorrow.